Hello, it's Hooded Kobold, and welcome back to part 2 of our GM's Guide to the Curse of Strahd. In our last one, we focused on some of the history for Curse of Strahd and Strahd von Zarovich himself, and how to create the Fortunes of Ravenkind deck. In this one, we're going to talk about how to get your players into this world using different adventure hooks, and the various features and things to know about the lands of Barovia. So let's get into some hooks. The book provides 4 different hooks, and I think all of them are relatively useful. The first one is the plea for help, and this is where one of the Vistani, Argyll, meets with the players in a tavern, whichever tavern they happen to be at. Argyll is sent there to hopefully recruit some players on a quest. The book says that Argyll strolls in and the room is quiet and all you can hear is his footsteps. All the other patrons have gone quiet, and he walks over to the bar counter and slaps down a pile of gold and a letter for the players. The letter is from his master, Kolyair Endorovich, and it asks for heroes to come and help him in his land of Barovia. His beloved Irina is being haunted by something, and he is very wealthy and can provide any heroes with this wealth if they come and assist him. Now, this is all just a ruse. Argyll is actually working with Strahd and is just trying to recruit more unfortunate souls into the land of Barovia. I think this is a great hook, though, for players that have a party that is already going, so if you're trying to maybe cross over from another module, or your players want to start at maybe a higher level, they want to do some other minor adventures and then go into Curse of Strahd, I think this is a good hook for that. The next one is Mysterious Visitors, and this is where the players have already done some type of accomplishments in Daggerford. The Duchess of Daggerford, Morwen, invites the players to a banquet. There, after lavishing them with wine and good food probably, she lets them know that there are some troublesome people down the road that she would like them to take care of. These so-called vagrants are the Vistani. They are traveling around and telling their stories and trying to get money for it. When the players finally show up to talk to the Vistani are actually very cordial and are not trying to make too much trouble. These Vistani have somewhat of a love-hate relationship with Strahd. They admire him because they are ancestrally tied to the Vistani that helped Strahd many years ago, and they actually tell the story of how their ancestors helped Strahd in a battle. He fought and didn't actually do very well. He lost, and he was wounded. Strahd barely escaped with his life and was rescued by some Vistani. They nursed him back to health and actually helped him get all the way back to his homeland. They asked for nothing in return and wished him well. Strahd was so enamored by their generosity, and he fell in love with their carefree spirit. From that day forward, he said that they would always be welcome in his land, and they could go to and fro as they please. After telling the story to the players, they invite them to the land of Barovia, saying that their master has a curse on him, and they need heroes to assist him with this curse. They invite the players into the land and tell them to go see Madame Ava, who they believe will be able to guide them to hopefully rid the land of this curse. Mysterious Visitors is probably the best hook. It does have a few minor issues. One of the issues that I think is pretty obvious is that it expects the players to have already done some little adventure in Daggerford, but it doesn't actually provide that. So I will be making another video at another time, so when that happens, it should be up here. And you can go to that link and then I'll take you to that adventure that I've made. Once they have that adventure, then this hook kind of makes a lot more sense. And I really like it because it even provides a little bit of narrative backstory, a little bit of that lore dumping in a fun way that makes sense for the players, and now the players can understand why the Vistani and Strahd have some type of connection. Also, by doing a somewhat serious minor adventure before this, you can actually get your players to level 3, and you don't need to do Death House, which historically has a lot of issues, like killing players. Werewolves in the Mist is the third adventure hook, and this hook is focused on the factions of Wizards of the Coast. So that's the Harpers, Order of the Gauntlet, the Lord's Alliance, the Zentarum. This one is really focused on I think the adventure play where Wizards has set up where you can kind of go into game shops and do these weekly or monthly adventures. So I think it's really tied into those factions. Being blunt and honest, I don't really like this one. It just says that there's werewolves over there, go fight them. So there really is a lack of substance here. One thing I do like, though, is that depending on which faction they start with, there's little hints or items that they're given, which can be quite fun and useful. For instance, the Harpers actually give the players some silvered weapons, which can be very useful for when you may meet some werewolves. But I think with some work, the werewolves in the mist can be usable. And our last one is Creeping Fog, and this is basically where you just want your players to do it and they're fighting you, so you force them to do it. So if it's not obvious already, I don't like this one very much, but you can use it in a dark thematic way, which I think is really nice, where the players are trying to go from maybe one town to another, and then on the way, they kind of get caught in this fog, maybe when they're making camp, and then now they're transported into the land of Barovia. When your players finally make it to Barovia, there should be two things that they notice right away. First is there's mist everywhere, and especially along the borders of the land. So once they pass the gates of Barovia, they'll notice that when they turn around, it's just a wall of fog. And actually entering in this fog, they will start having to make constitution saves or gain levels of exhaustion. These levels of exhaustion also cannot be removed while within the fog. So essentially this creates a death spiral as the players get lost and confused and then start getting more and more exhausted until either they're lucky enough to make it back into the land of Barovia or they perish in the mist. The second thing is that light in Barovia is strangely muted. So for spell effects, there's still such thing as bright light, but that light should always be cast narratively as dimmer than normal. One thing that your players will quickly notice is also magic has vastly changed in Barovia. Many spells have a cosmetic change, like Mage Hand is a skeletal hand, and the spell Alarm, instead of a mental ping, they hear someone scream. But there are more significant changes. For instance, Resurrection. So any spell in which the players come back to life, or anyone comes back to life, there is madness that comes with coming back to life, as the players' souls never actually left Barovia. They were unable to, and somehow magically got forced back into the body using the resurrection spell, and their soul has taken a toll from the realization that if they die here, their soul cannot escape. It stays stuck in this land. But this is an issue with the living as well, as all spells, like teleport or astral projection, don't allow the players to leave this plane. There are a couple minor exceptions to this. For instance, spells that use extra-dimensional space, like Mordenkainen's Mansion, work like normal. There are two different types of people that live in this land. They are the Barovians and the Vistani. After his armies occupied the valley and slew its inhabitants, Strahd repopulated the area with human subjects drawn from other conquered lands. As a result, Barovians have a wide variety of ethnic backgrounds. Barovians are deeply invested in their homes and their traditions. They are wary of strange people and customs. The way Barovians deal with strangers can be unsettling to newcomers. Barovians have a tendency to stare openly in silence, thereby expressing their disapproval of anything that isn't familiar to them. Barovians aren't talkative with strangers to the extent of being pointedly rude. Most Barovians have violent tempers that boil up through their customary silence when they are provoked. They also have a social cohesiveness that can make them act together against outsiders if a Barovian is mistreated. Barovians were a happy people once, but their history and current conditions aren't pleasant. If one manages to win the trust of a Barovian, one has a friend for life, and a stalwart ally. As I said earlier in the video, Souls cannot leave this land. There are about 3,000 people that live in the land of Barovia, but only about 1 in 10 actually have souls. These Barovians are just empty shells created by Strahd to help fill out the population of Barovia. They act mostly normal, except they are fear-driven and have most of their emotions muted. They don't get super angry, they don't cry at loss. They are most of the time blank, in a sense, or afraid. There are quite a few things that Barovians know or believe, and getting to know one, the Barovians can share these beliefs and knowledges to your players. I think one of the most interesting ones is how the Barovians believe that Strahd is a curse that has been placed on this land for a forgotten sin of the Barovians long past. Another one is that vampires cannot enter a residence without an invitation, and this one I believe can set up a very thematic and fun moment. In the beginning, have Strahd follow this rule to a T. This will create some sense of safety for your players when they can find a building that they can escape into. But the truth is, this is just a pleasantry that Strahd does. He actually owns all of the land, all the buildings, all the people, everything. So he doesn't actually need permission to enter a building, it's his. But this will trick your players into believing they have some type of safety so that later you can kind of pull the rug from under them. The second type of people are the Vistani. The Vistani, or their singular, Vistana, are wanderers, traveling about in horse-drawn, barrel-topped wagons, which they build themselves. Compared to Barovians, they are flamboyant, dressed in bright colors and laughing often. As much as they feel at home in Strahd's dreary land, they know they can leave it whenever they please, and aren't damned to spend eternity here. Vistani families and clans are closely knit. They resolve disagreements through contests that end in singing and dancing and storytelling. Though the Vistani are quick to act when their lives or traditions are threatened, and are merciless when they believe they must be. Because Strahd has given them a special gift, allowing them to travel into and out of Barovia as they please, they act very different than the Barovians. A lot of the Vistani feel somewhat indebted to Strahd and know that working with him can be advantageous. So a lot of Vistani are spies for Strahd, or at least will not allow things or people to cross Strahd. The Vistani also have a couple special abilities. Their curses and their evil eye. These curses range from not able to find a small item that was on your person to your teeth becoming giant buck beaver teeth, but can be as severe as becoming blind or deaf. All it takes is a Vistani who has felt they have been wronged, and they mutter a curse. The player, or the other NPC affected, must make a DC of 8 plus the Vistani's proficiency, plus their charisma modifier. The curse does not come without any baggage though. After the curse effect has ended, the Vistani will take psychic damage depending on the severity of the curse, ranging from 1d6 psychic damage all the way to like 5d6. So your players may quickly find that it is best not to get on the bad side of Vistana. While your players travel around the lands of Barovia, there are 2 random encounter tables, one for day and one for night. A lot of these are very interesting and cool and add a lot of flavor to this land. But I do have a recommendation. One of the encounters is the Revenant. In this encounter, they will meet someone from the Order of the Silver Dragon, a knightly order that used to live in this land before Strahd came over and removed them. They were a righteous vanguard hellbent on keeping evil out of this land. If the characters don't outright attack the Revenant and actually try to talk with it, it will lead them to Argynvostholt, the stronghold of the Order of the Silver Dragon, allowing them to meet Vladimir Horngard, the leader of the Silver Dragon, who will maybe help them in the future. So for that one encounter, the Revenant, it is supposed to be done, these random encounters are done by rolling a d12 and a d8, and then adding those together. So you would have to roll a 12 and an 8 to get this one, since it's on the 20 line. But instead, I recommend just make this one happen. So maybe it's not the first one, but it's the 5th time. So the 5th time that you're going to be rolling a random encounter, just slide this one in and make them meet the Revenant. The lands of Barovia are quite vast, so let's go over them a bit. Old Salovich Road. If the characters are walking along the road, they arrive at Area B, the Gates of Barovia, after 5 hours. If the characters are traveling with the Vistani, the travel time is halved. The Gates of Barovia. 2 sets of these gates exist, one west of the village of Barovia and one east of the village. If the characters are traveling on foot, the gates swing open as they approach, screeching as the hinges move. The gates close behind the characters as they pass through. If the characters are riding in Vistani wagons, the gates open in front of the lead wagon and close when the rear one has entered. The eastern gates don't open for the people trying to leave Strahd's domain. The fog chokes any non-Vistani that passes through the gates or skirts around them. Salovich Woods. Towering trees whose tops are lost in the heavy gray mist block out all but the death gray light. The tree trunks are unnaturally close to one another, and the woods have a silence of a forgotten grave. If the characters are traveling in Vistani wagons, they continue to the village of Barovia without incident. If the characters are traveling on foot, the party member with the highest passive wisdom score notices something. This stench of death they notice leads them to a dead man. Upon inspection, he is clenched holding a letter, and this letter is eerily similar to the one they were given if they did the plea for help adventure hook. Village of Barovia. I'll have a whole video on this, and once it is put up, it will be linked in the top right corner. River Ivlis Crossroads. An old wooden gallows creaks in a chill wind that blows down from the high ground to the west. A frayed length of rope dances from its beam. The well-worn road splits here, and a signpost opposite of the gallows points off in 3 directions. Barovia Village to the east, Terpool to the northwest, and Ravenloft Valaki to the southwest. Across from the gallows, a low wall, crumbling in places, partially encloses a small plot of graves surrounded in fog. Tesserpool Encampment. The road gradually disappears and is replaced by a twisted muddy path along the trees. Deep ruts in the earth are evidence of comings and goings of wagons. The canopy of mist and branches suddenly gives way to black clouds boiling far above. There is a clearing here, next to the river that widens to form a small lake several hundred feet across. 5 colorful round tents, each 10 feet in diameter, are pitched along the outside ring of 4 barrel-topped wagons. A much larger tent stands near the shore of the lake, its sagging form lit from within. If the characters are brought to this camp by the Vistani, their escorts remain in the camp and don't accompany the party any further. 12 Vistani are standing and sitting around the fire, telling stories and guzzling wine. Although the Vistani in this camp are in leagues with Strahd, they attack only if the characters provoke them with threats or insults. One of the Vistani tells them, "It was fated that you would visit our humble camp. Madame Ava foretold your coming. She awaits you." And the Vistana points them to Madame Ava's tent. This is where you will do the card reading that we talked about in the previous video. One thing I did forget to mention in the previous video, though, is I highly recommend not making that completely random. There is just a lot of unfortunate things that could happen, like all of the items that the players are going to be looking for might be in Ravenloft, or they might all be in one other location. So what I recommend doing is kind of do it ahead of time without the players there and create your pattern. And then ones that you don't like, just replace. So just draw the top card again and look where you want to place that, and then kind of build it in a semi-random fashion. Castle Ravenloft. This is the lair of the vampire Strahd von Zarevich, and will be discussed in a later video. When that video is made, you should see it in the top right corner. Lake Zarovich. At the foot of a mountain nestled in the misty forest is a large lake. The water is perfectly still and dark, reflecting the black clouds overhead like a monstrous mirror. Here is where the Bluto encounter will be. He is a fisher and he has not caught any fish in a long time, and for some reason He believes that sacrificing a kidnapped Vistani is the best course of action. So when the characters arrive, he has Arabelle, a Vistani, who has been tied up and is lowering her into the water, sacrificing her in hopes for bountiful fish catching, I guess. Mad Mage of Mount Baratok. North of the mountain lake, the trees begin their steady climb up the slopes of Mount Baratok. Its monolithic presence oppressive at this distance. The ground here is rocky, uneven, and tiring to navigate. Even the wolves avoid this neck of the woods. Soon you climb above the blanket of fog that engulfs the valley. Dark thunder clouds roll overhead. You see an elk standing on a rocky spur. Suddenly, it assumes the form of a man in tattered black robes. His hair and beard are long, black, and streaked with gray, and his eyes crackle with eldritch power. Here the players will learn about the Mad Mage of Barovia and his mansion. The Mad Mage is actually Mordenkainen, which is kind of a cool thing, but the book says that if he isn't one of the Strahd's enemies, he kind of just tells the players to kick rocks, which I think it's probably best to either just not include him or just make him some other mad mage, or allow the players to better utilize him as a resource if it seems it's a plausible reason that he would. Town of Vallaki. I'll talk more about this one in another episode, so if it's been made, it should be in the top right corner. Old Bone Grinder. This decrepit windmill is occupied by hags, and will also be talked more about in a later chapter. The link should be in the top right corner. Luna River Crossroads. The road comes to an X intersection with branches to the northwest, northeast, southwest, and southeast. The lower half of a snapped wooden signpost thrusts upwards at an angle near the eastern elbow of the intersection. The top half of the sign, featuring arms pointed in four directions, lies in weeds nearby. The characters can easily find out how the top half of the signpost connects to the lower half. When the two parts of the signs are aligned and rejoined, the arms indicate Kresik and the Selenka pass to the southwest, Lake Baratok to the northwest, Valakai and Ravenloft to the northeast, and Berez to the southeast. Argynvostholt. This is the ruined mansion, Argynvostholt, and the stronghold of the Order of Silver Dragons. I'll also talk more about this location in a further chapter. Once I've made it, the link should be in the top right corner. Village of Kresik. This is the village of Kresik, which surrounds the Abbey of St. Markovia. I'll also have a dedicated video on this location, and once it's made, it should be in the top right corner. Selenka Pass. Selenka Pass is a gravel road that hugs Mount Gaucus and climbs to great heights. I will also talk more about this location in another episode. Link to it should be in the top right. Ruins of Berez. The city of Berez was once a nice village, but unfortunately for them, they slighted Strahd, who in turn flooded the village, and now the village is home to Baba Saga. I'll talk more about this location in another episode. Link to it should be in the top right corner. Van Richten's Tower. This tower originally belonged to a wizard, Kazan, but now it hosts the famous vampire hunter Van Richten. I'll talk more about this location in another video. Link should be in the top right corner. The Wizards of Wines. This location is the sole grower and producer of wine in the land of Barovia. I'll talk more about this location in another video. Link should be in the top right corner. The Amber Temple. The Amber Temple is a dark and mysterious place, home to many dark powers that dwell in this region. I'll talk more about it in another video. Link should be in the top right corner. Yester Hill. Yester Hill is home to a circle of druids, and also to the Golthius tree. I'll talk more about this location in another video. Link should be in the top right corner. Werewolf Den. West of Lake Baratok is a cave complex that the werewolves of Barovia use as a den. I'll talk more about this location in another video. Link should be in the top right corner. So as you can tell, Barovia is a large place, even though the players are trapped here. Well, that's it for this one. In our next video, we're going to be focusing on Chapter 3, which is the Village of Barovia. If you like this video, please leave it a like. Also, if you like this content and want to see more of it, please feel free to subscribe. I also want to thank my beautiful Patreons for supporting me. And until next time, guys, bye-bye.